Ms. Russell, I'd like to continue on this issue. In terms of what Mr. Takano was saying, my understanding is, along your line, it's not just, and it's not a matter it's not just a matter of people who pretend to be girls or women who are biological males moving into girls and women's sports to take a place, but isn't there an issue of the difference in strength and the issue of safety? Aren't those primary issues with saying biological men should not be competing against biological women?
You are correct. So even if a biological male is on puberty blockers, testosterone blockers, they can still maintain their muscle mass with their workouts. As far as the safety, right now we just talked about 3 different high school athletes who've been injured by biological males. One of those biological males is not transgender. And the speed of the shot that he took that hit the girl in the mouth in field hockey, if you don't know what a field hockey ball looks like, it's harder than a baseball and harder than a lacrosse ball. The muscle mass in men, it's not just that, it's the body composition. The hips are thinner. They aren't made to give birth to children. Right. They aren't made to breastfeed children.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gaines, thank you very much for the great work that you're doing and in bringing this issue, keeping this issue in the forefront of people's minds. The lack of transparency provided by the Biden administration about changes to Title IX and other aspects of their social agenda is concerning, particularly for parents. Ms. Gaines, how did your parents find out you would be changing clothes in the same locker room as a biological male?
Well, I had to call my parents. As mentioned in my testimony, we were not forewarned. We would be sharing a changing space. The first time we became aware we would be forced to undress next to, again, this 6'4", 22-year-old male, fully intact with and exposing male genitalia, was when we were inches away from this male also simultaneously undressing. And I'll tell you, I called my parents, specifically my dad, and he was outraged.
And so no one was informed about this ahead of time. What are your former teammates? I'm sure you've been around them. How are they responding to these sweeping changes in women's sports?
Being team captain at University of Kentucky, both my junior and senior year, I made sure to facilitate an environment where everyone felt comfortable sharing their views. And what I noticed was 38 out of the 40 girls on the women's swimming and diving team felt the exact same way I'm sharing with you. And again, I don't claim to speak for every single girl, but I do claim to speak for the overwhelming majority of us because I saw the tears from the girls who, of course, placed 9th and 17th and missed out on being named an All-American by 1 place, and I felt the extreme discomfort. And I can attest to the whispers of anger and frustration from those girls who, just like myself, had worked our entire lives to get to that point.
Thank you. Ms. Perry, what impact do you believe the Biden administration's attempts to change Title IX will have in parental involvement in women's sports? And how important is parental involvement? Why should we protect it?
Well, this administration is keen to divest parents of their constitutional authority to oversee the care and upbringing of their children at every turn. And the rise in what we've seen of these confidential gender identity policies and publicly funded schools is a perfect example of that. Divesting parents from their ability to be involved in the children's sports, the competitive nature of what will ultimately invest them going forward with the maturity and the success that they'll need later in life, I don't think just involves parents. I think ultimately involves a disservice to teachers, to educators, to school administrators. And the fact of the matter is, just the second of these 2 rules is patently unconstitutional and won't survive a legal challenge.
Ms. Perry, in their April 13th proposed rule, the Biden administration uses the Bostock versus Clayton County ruling as justification. What is the Biden administration's error in using this rule?
It's hard to contain it into a very brief statement, but I will say that the opinion began with Justice Gorsuch writing, "We begin with the assumption that sex means biological distinctions between male and female. At no point was sex expanded to include gender identity. Title IX and Title VII are completely different. Title VII, which was at issue in Bostock, is an employment law that prevents consideration at all of underlying sex or sex characteristics. Title IX, however, is exactly the opposite. It requires consideration of sex, and because Gorsuch was clear to cabin the opinion, saying exclusively we are not talking about anything but employment discrimination law, we are not discussing pronouns, bathrooms, dress codes, or locker rooms, that, unfortunately, was not a message I think the Department of Education was keen to listen to, so they patently ignored it.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Perry.